Ever cried over a dropped sandwich? Like full-blown meltdown? Over melted cheese and gravity? That wasn't just you being too sensitive. That was your sleep-deprived brain throwing a toddler-sized tantrum. Because here's the thing. Bad sleep doesn't just make you tired. It makes you emotionally unstable. It hijacks your mood, magnifies stress, and turns every little bump in the day into a full-on emotional speed bump. And I've lived it. I used to think I was just moody, anxious, irritable, maybe just not a morning person. But it turns out I wasn't broken. I was just running on half a tank of sleep every single day. In this video, we're diving into the real science of why lack of sleep messes with your emotions and what you can do about it. You'll learn how sleep affects your emotional regulation and impulse control. What happens inside your brain when you're sleep deprived? Spoiler, it's wild. Why even one bad night can throw off your mood for days, and simple things you can do to protect your mental health by protecting your sleep. This isn't about becoming perfect, it's about becoming resilient. And sleep is one of the most powerful tools we have, but we rarely treat it that way. Before we jump in, drop a comment below and tell me, where are you watching from? And what's the most irrational thing you've cried or snapped over when sleep deprived? I once got emotional over a traffic cone. I wish I was joking. If you've ever felt like your emotions were running the show, hit subscribe. We talk about brain health and real-life recovery every single week. Give this video a like so YouTube knows sleep matters, and share this with someone who's been extra snappy lately. Don't name names, just send it. Let's get into it. Your brain's about to feel seen. Let's imagine something for a second. You're running on 4 hours of sleep, stuck in traffic, and someone cuts you off. Do you? A. Take a deep breath and let it go. B. Grit your teeth and mutter something under your breath. C. Scream like you're auditioning for a metal band. If you picked C, yeah, you're not alone. Because when you're sleep deprived, your brain starts acting like it's drunk. And I don't mean fun drunk. I mean unfiltered, overreactive, zero-control drunk. Here's why. There are two key players in your emotional response system: your amygdala and your prefrontal cortex. The amygdala is your brain's fire alarm. It reacts fast. It doesn't think, it feels. It's the part that says, danger, panic, rage, cry. The prefrontal cortex, on the other hand, is your voice of reason. It's your chill-out center. It helps you evaluate, pause, respond with logic instead of impulse. But when you don't sleep, that connection between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala gets weaker. Like, really weak. So now your emotional fire alarm is blaring, and the calm voice that usually shuts it down? It's on a coffee break, or more accurately, passed out from exhaustion. That's why lack of sleep doesn't just make you grumpy. It makes you less able to control your reaction to anything. Traffic, a text, a spilled coffee, a weird look from your coworker. Suddenly everything feels personal. Everything feels big. And it's not about willpower. It's literally your brain's emotional wiring, short-circuiting from lack of rest. Next, we'll talk about just how fast this can happen. What even one bad night of sleep. We tend to joke about it. Oh, I'm just cranky because I didn't sleep. But here's the truth. Sleep deprivation doesn't just make you grumpy. It can mess with your entire emotional landscape. Your brain isn't just tired, it's chemically off balance. Research shows that people who consistently get less than 6 hours of sleep a night are more likely to experience mood swings, irritability, increased anxiety, and even symptoms of depression. Not because something's wrong with you, but because your brain is operating in survival mode, not emotional balance. I once had a week where I was waking up at 3 a.m. every night. By day 5, I was snapping at my partner over dishes, spiraling over work emails, and feeling this weird fog I couldn't shake. I wasn't depressed. I wasn't broken. I was just under-rested. That's why one of my favorite reminders is this. You're not moody. You're underslept. Sleep is the foundation your emotional resilience is built on. And when you don't get enough, it's like trying to hold your life together with duct tape. In the next part, we'll look at how fast this can happen, what just one night of poor sleep can do to your mental state the very next day. You'll be surprised how immediate the effects are. Let's dive in. We tend to think of sleep like a bank account. Hey, I'll pull an all-nighter and catch up this weekend. But your brain? It doesn't work like that. Even one bad night of sleep can throw off your mood, your focus, and your ability to make good decisions. Why? Because sleep is when your brain clears out mental clutter, restores focus, and strengthens memory. When you skip that recovery time, even for just one night, your brain runs like a glitchy phone on 5% battery. I once stayed up prepping for a big client pitch. I told myself, this will be worth it. I'll feel prepared. Instead, I showed up foggy, forgot half my talking points, and ended up awkwardly clicking through the wrong slide deck. I didn't need more rehearsal. I needed REM sleep. And it doesn't just affect work. I've seen friends get into full-blown arguments over nothing, simply because their impulse control was shot after a rough night. The lesson? It doesn't take weeks of sleep loss to mess with your brain. It can take one night. Your prefrontal cortex, the part that helps you stay calm, organized, and reasonable, gets sluggish. Meanwhile, your emotional brain? It's wide awake and ready to pop off. Next, we'll talk about what happens when this becomes a long-term pattern. How chronic sleep deprivation affects not just your mood, but your overall mental health. Let's take it deeper. So, we know what one bad night can do. But what happens when every night is a struggle? When I didn't sleep well becomes I haven't slept well in months. That's when sleep deprivation stops being a nuisance and becomes a mental health crisis in slow motion. Long-term lack of sleep has been linked to increased risk of anxiety, depression, even worsening symptoms of PTSD. And it's not just correlation, it's causation. Because sleep is when your brain processes emotions, clears trauma, and recharges your coping mechanisms. When you don't sleep, your emotional reset button gets stuck. You start living life on edge, overreacting to small things, shutting down when life gets heavy, or just feeling flat all the time. I've talked to people who thought they were depressed. Turns out they were just exhausted for so long they forgot what rested felt like. That's why I always say, sleep isn't self-care. It's survival. It's not a luxury. It's not optional. It's the foundation of your mental resilience, your memory, your creativity, your joy. And the good news? Fixing your sleep isn't about overhauling your life. It starts with understanding your brain and giving it what it's always been asking for: time to rest. Next, we'll look at how sleep actually protects your emotions, how it acts like an emotional reset button, and why consistent rest makes you more emotionally stable, compassionate, and calm. Let's talk about that. Have you ever woken up after a solid 8 hours and thought, wow, yesterday doesn't feel as heavy today? That's not just time passing. That's your brain doing some overnight emotional housekeeping. Studies, including MRI scans, show that during REM sleep, the emotional center of your brain literally calms down. Activity in the amygdala, remember, your emotional fire alarm, gets dialed down, while the prefrontal cortex, your voice of reason, comes back online. Basically, your brain uses REM sleep to reprocess emotional experiences and put them into context. Not erase them, but take away the panic, the sting, the edge. It's like hitting Control-Alt-Delete on your anxiety. I've had nights where I went to bed angry or overwhelmed, but after real rest, not tossing and turning, but real sleep, I woke up able to see things clearly again. Same problem, different brain. The truth is, you don't always need more willpower. Sometimes you just need more REM. When you sleep, your brain gets a chance to refile emotional open tabs, to say, okay, that's done. We can let that go now. And people who get consistent REM sleep are more emotionally stable, less reactive, and even more compassionate to themselves and others. Next up, we'll talk about how sleep isn't just about feeling better. It actually makes you a better human in your relationships, your work, your decisions, and that starts with respecting your rest. Let's keep going. Here's a wild idea that's actually backed by science. Sleep makes you kinder. No, seriously. When you're well rested, your brain has more capacity for empathy, patience, and emotional regulation. MRI studies show that sleep-deprived people have reduced activity in the parts of the brain tied to compassion and decision-making, and increased activity in, you guessed it, the reactive, blow-up-over-nothing centers. I felt this most when I became a parent. On the nights I barely slept, I was quicker to snap. Little things, spilled cereal, a tantrum, a forgotten shoe, felt overwhelming. But when I got even one solid night of sleep, I had more space to breathe, to pause, to respond, not react. And it's not just parenting. At work, I noticed I was more patient with colleagues, more focused during meetings, more generous with feedback. Even traffic didn't bother me as much. Okay, as much. The truth is, sleep doesn't just recharge your energy, it restores your humanity. You become more resilient, more emotionally available, more you. And let's wrap it up together. So now you know, sleep doesn't just recharge your body, it resets your emotions. But how do you actually get that kind of sleep? The kind that makes you calmer, more patient, more emotionally stable. Here's a simple 4-step checklist I use to protect my sleep like my peace depends on it. Because it does. Checkmark 1. Keep a consistent sleep and wake time. Your brain loves rhythm, even on weekends. Go to bed and wake up at the same time every day. Yes, even Saturday. 2. Create a wind-down routine. Dim the lights, put your phone away, stretch, journal, or read something light. Let your brain know it's time to land. 3. Protect your sleep environment. Cool, dark, quiet room, eye mask if needed. No scrolling in bed. Your phone is not a teddy bear. 4. Set a bedtime alarm. We always set alarms to wake up. But what if you set one to remind you to go to sleep? Mine goes off at 10 p.m. It's my cue to close the laptop, take a breath, and give my brain what it's been asking for all day: rest. One small change, like a bedtime alarm, can lead to huge emotional shifts over time. Because emotionally stable sleep isn't fancy. It's intentional. In the final part, I'll give you a gentle challenge to try one of these tonight, and invite you to share your wins and struggles with me and others. You don't have to figure this out alone. Let's finish strong. So let's bring it all home. You've learned that lack of sleep doesn't just make you tired, it hijacks your emotions. One bad night can mess with your mind. Chronic sleep loss can cloud your life. But just a few nights of real, intentional rest can bring back clarity, calm, and compassion. And that bedtime alarm might just be your new emotional reset button. Now it's your turn to feel the difference. Here's your challenge. Track your sleep and your mood for the next 3 days. Nothing fancy. Just jot down when you slept, how long, and how you felt the next day. Grumpy? Peaceful? Snappy in line at Starbucks? I dare you to prove me wrong. Because chances are, you'll start seeing patterns. And when you do, you'll realize it wasn't your job. It wasn't your family. It wasn't your life falling apart. It was your brain asking for sleep. Drop a comment in 3 days and tell me what changed. Hit like if this helped you feel a little more seen, and subscribe for the next part of this series, where we'll talk about how sleep doesn't just shape your mood, it shapes your memory, your creativity, and how you show up in the world. Share this with someone whose emotions are on edge. You might be giving them more than advice. You might be giving them a reset. You don't have to fix everything overnight, but tonight, you can rest. And that's a beautiful start. See you in the next one.